Going into the season, we all knew the 2024 NBA draft was bad. I knew it, you knew it, you couldn't find a single person out there that thought that this was some kind of star-studded draft class. And through the early part of the season, that has absolutely been true. But there's something happening with this class that I find really interesting. So let's go through each of the guys. And what I think is happening with this class is perfectly encapsulated by the first overall pick, Zachary Richelet. At the time of the draft, people were confused as to why this guy was going first, even in a weak draft class. They didn't see the star potential. They didn't see the upside. They didn't see this guy as a franchise cornerstone. But that's kind of the point, not only of Richelet, but of this draft in general. And if you adjust your expectations, I kind of like this draft class right now. And again, everything I'm about to say about Richelet is perfect for the rest of the class. I don't think that this is going to be an all-star caliber player. I don't think he's going to be an all-NBA caliber guy. Maybe he could be a fringe all-star, but I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be helpful and impactful and a long-term piece of what they're building in Atlanta. And given their other options, it was probably the right pick. There are other guys that maybe you like better as potential stars or all-stars, maybe guys you think have a higher upside, but I think in a couple of years, Richelet is going to get a nice extension. He's going to shoot the ball well, give them size and defend. And even in a draft class that we all knew was bad, that's still really valuable. And I could be wrong. Like, there's physical tools here that make you think that maybe he's going to be better than that. But right now, through the early part of the year, he's had a really good start. The guy that hasn't had a very good start is Alex Sarr. This feels like the pick that was really all about upside. It was about projecting what the player could be. It was about potential. And unfortunately, the real life production has not been there so far for Alex Sarr. The shooting splits are absolutely atrocious. Some of the off-ball defense in terms of per game numbers has actually been kind of decent if you're looking at blocks and steals. But if you actually watch the games, he has no idea how to defend in ball screens. He has no idea how to defend off the ball. He's giving up offensive rebounds. They're the worst rebounding team in the entire league. And in the post against individual matchups, like against someone like Alperen Şengün, he's just having a terrible time. He has no idea how to defend one-on-one in the post. And so it's nice that he's getting a lot of minutes. It's nice that he's playing a lot of the five, and the Wizards are playing a ton of rookies. They have 3 first-round picks, all of which are near the top in minutes per game from this class. But it just hasn't been a good start. Having said that, if you take away the star expectations from Alex Sarr, I think down the road, if he improves as a jump shooter, improves defensively, there is a lot to like here as a complementary piece. I don't think he's ever going to be a star. I don't think he's ever going to be an all-star, but I think he could be a productive, helpful player, which second overall pick in a class that isn't ideal, but still, you got to pick what you have, right? And then third overall, I think is the guy that a lot of people thought had star potential and has looked really good, not only in summer league, but early on to start the year. And that, of course, is Reed Sheppard in Houston. The problem with him in terms of a potential rookie of the year case or really getting super excited by him is Houston has so many guys. They're so deep that they don't really have a lot of space for Reed Sheppard in their rotation right now, which means that he's giving up shots to guys like Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks, which is fine. But when you really want to evaluate someone and hope they improve, you'd like to see them out there a little bit more. I, from what I've seen, love Reed Sheppard. He's going to be an awesome shooter. There's more on-ball creation stuff than you thought. He's more active defensively than you thought he might be. Again, I'm not thinking that this is going to be an all-NBA caliber player, but if anybody in the top 3, if someone is a all-star or fringe all-star in 4 years, I think it's probably Reed Sheppard. There's just a feel to his game that I really, really like, and I think if he got more opportunities, we'd get even a better chance to see that. Outside of that, things do get a little rough in this class again in terms of that star upside, but if you think about them just as role players, it can get kind of interesting. If fourth overall is Stephon Castle with the Spurs, who I really, really like. I still have concerns, like long-term, is he going to be able to shoot the ball well enough, right? Like if he doesn't shoot well from 3, it's going to be very difficult for him to have a long-term high-level impact in the NBA. But if he can do that, there's some creation stuff. He's an awesome defender, super active. I want to see him continue to get minutes. Really like what I've seen out of him in San Antonio. And then to round out the top 5 is Ron Holland for the Pistons, who has looked exactly like what you thought that he would. He's not playing a ton. He is not shooting the ball well at all. He can't shoot, and they're just struggling to find a spot for him in a rotation in a Pistons team that's actually shockingly competent all of a sudden. But speaking of usage, something that is having a ton of usage in my house these days is the sponsor of today's video, DoorDash. And you're probably thinking DoorDash is just about food, but that's not the case. They have more than just that. They have flowers, they have retail items, all different kinds of stuff available on the app. And for me, DoorDash is huge right now because my wife is pregnant, and on occasion there's just something from a restaurant or from the store that she just has to have, and me not having to go out and go get it and being able to just order it on DoorDash is absolutely perfect. Another example is obviously I don't sound fantastic right now, a little under the weather, and that's another scenario where I don't want to go to the store and be around other people, and sometimes I just need something from the store and I don't want to go out and get it. Again, I just go onto the DoorDash app and it gets delivered to me. So whether it be food or flowers or retail items, DoorDash is your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to get almost anything delivered and use code SPORTING2024 to get 50% off up to $10 your first order of $15 or more. Check check that out in the link in the description as well. And thank you again to DoorDash for sponsoring this video. Now back to the 2024 NBA draft class. So we've gotten through the top 5. Outside of that, within the top 10, it doesn't look great. The guy for the Hornets, whose name I always screw up, is not playing very much. Klingon for the Blazers is not playing much, but I think he's going to soon. I think DeAndre Ayton is they're at least gonna try to get him on a different team and or just not really play him. I think Chauncey Billups probably gonna get fired at some point, and then they're gonna go in a little bit more of a younger direction. Klingon, Rob Williams, I think are the bigs of the future there. I don't think the front office really likes DeAndre Ayton all that much at the moment. At 8, Rob Dillingham, who Minnesota traded up, and I think they thought he was gonna be a big part of their team. He hasn't really played at all. He did have some injury stuff, but from a minutes perspective, from a top 10 pick, not giving them very much at all. Again, the injury stuff is there. And then there's Cody Williams in Utah at 10 overall, is shooting 27% from the field as of recording of this video. Not ideal. But the guy in the top 10 that, of course, everybody wants to talk about is Zach Edey. And I've really kind of narrowed down my evaluation of what I think Zach Edey is going to be in the NBA. And his minutes have actually been pretty inconsistent. In the beginning of the year and through Summer League, it felt like, okay, this is their starting 5 for the season. It's a team that sees themselves as semi-contenders, sees themselves as one of the better teams in the West once they're all healthy, which they haven't been healthy the entire year. And so Zach Edey was going to be the starting 5 of that. Now he's coming off the bench a little bit. His minutes have been reduced. I think there's been some defensive issues in space, but this is the archetype for Zach Edey because we've started to see him shoot more threes and actually shoot them pretty effectively. He's Brook Lopez. I think they picked Brook Lopez at 9th overall in a bad draft, which is totally fine, right? He is going to be able to occasionally get you a bucket in the post. You're not going to be able to switch against someone like John Morant or whoever else is the creator because you give it to Zach Edey in the post. He's going to be able to punish that matchup. He's going to continue to get better at that. At the rim, defensively, he's really good. There's real deterrence from him at the rim. In space, it's going to be a problem. You're going to have to play drop coverage. You're not going to be able to play any other way. Again, exactly like Brook Lopez. And really importantly for Memphis, given that Ja isn't the best spacer, they don't have great spacing, Zach Edey, I think, is going to be a decent to good three-point shooter, just like Brook Lopez has been in the later part of his career as well. That's the comp for me. I don't think there's going to be anything more than that. I don't think he's going to be this super high-impact guy they're going to give the ball in the post to all the time. But in this class, getting that level of impact at 9th, I think is totally fine. Now, once you get outside of the top 10, you got to kind of start looking pretty hard for guys. But again, we're looking for role players here, right? So I mentioned Washington's playing a couple of guys, Bub Carrington and Keyshawn George, 14 and 24 respectively in the draft. They lead all rookies in minutes per game, those two guys, and then of course Alex Sarr as well. Washington's just trying to play all the young guys they can. George, I don't really know. It's just going to depend on if he can shoot or not. Like there's some long-term stuff there in terms of 3-and-D wing, obviously. But I really like Bub Carrington. I don't know if he's going to be anything more than just like a starting guard on a decent team, but I like him, especially so far as a rookie in a weak draft class. We've got Jalen Wells in Memphis, a second-round pick at 39th overall. He's second in the class in total points. He shot the ball extremely well, and Memphis just does this. They just continue to find guys later on in the first round and in the second round that are going to be able to help them. At 21, Missy for the Pelicans has been good, especially on a team that has needed a 5 a lot. He still gets lost in space a little bit, but the rim protection has been really good. Connect, of course, for the Lakers has been solid, but at times a little bit disappointing. They're still trying to get their rotation figured out. Ryan Dunn for the Suns has been awesome at 28. I expect the three-point shooting to stagnate for him at some point because nobody thought he was going to be a good shooter, and then all of a sudden he just made every 3 that he looked at. But defensively has a body type that they absolutely need. 16, Jared McCain has started to figure out a little bit for Philadelphia as a on-ball creator. That's really promising for them. And then there's some other guys that have been solid too. But the point for this class is look at these guys as role players. Like what DeAndre Hunter was supposed to be when he was drafted, everybody knew when he got picked that he wasn't going to be an all-star, but it was like, oh, he could be a really solid player for us. He could be the 3rd, maybe 4th best player on a really good team. That's the mindset you have to have for pretty much every single player in this class. And when you do that, when you don't compare it to other classes, when you don't compare the overall talent level and the peak talent level to other classes, the class starts to look much more interesting and intriguing. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all of these guys continue to develop. But right now, I'm kind of in on the 2024 draft class.